There's a lot of excitement about today's inflation data.
Look, this is actually quite a good number.
But I personally don't think this is the relief to struggling families that people are saying it is. And I want to tell you why. Yes, a decline in the growth rate of prices is about as close to good news as we've had in a while. Today's 7.9% CPI inflation means we're down from the 8.7% figure last month. But when I look at the data, I see worrying signs that inflation remains stubborn. There's a few different things that I want to discuss here today, and I've timestamped them below for you. But let's first just start with the thing that's grabbing all of the headlines, and that's food costs. The growth in food prices has fallen by a full 1% since the May figures, down from 18.4% to 17.4%. The CEO of Ocado, a company that sells really expensive food, said that he thinks that we've seen the worst of food price inflation. Personally, I'm reluctant to say that the worst is over when prices are still compounding at a rate of nearly 17% a year. Remember, a fall in the rate of inflation still means prices are going up. So 17% inflation is on top of the rate of inflation that we had last year. And that's an average. Many consumer essentials have inflated in price way beyond the 17% rate. The cost of a food shop is still going up at a staggering rate, and we need to see this rate of inflation fall away a lot quicker than it is. There is zero excuse now for us not to see food price inflation fall away massively in the coming months. The Producer Price Index is a measure of inflation in the production of goods at wholesale levels. So it measures the cost of making things before they reach us, the consumer. We can see that PPI here has fallen off a cliff and has recently gone negative, meaning the cost of production is falling. And looking at the trend, we can see a decline or rise in PPI always preceded the same trend in CPI. When cost of production goes up or down, so does inflation in prices. Tesco's themselves just stated that the food and grocery industry is moving from a period of inflation to deflation and wants to see prices fall significantly from its suppliers. Nothing to do with the fact that you got accused of profiteering, Tesco's, no. Whatever their motives are, they are correct. There's been a 50% drop in wholesale electricity prices, a 22% drop in the cost of packaging, and an 84% decline in the cost of freight over the past year. These savings must be passed on to consumers, and quickly. 17% inflation in food prices, even though it's down 1% on last month, is still a national emergency. No amount of interest rate rises will solve that problem, because it doesn't matter how poor you are, you still need to eat. Food inflation is a cost-push phenomenon. As producers of food have pushed up or increased the costs and put that on consumers, it's not that we're buying more food than ever that's inflating the prices, it's that prices have risen due to the cost of production spiking here. Now the costs have decreased, the reverse must happen. There has been some good news in the cost of fuel. Transport costs are now the first negative contributor to the overall inflation data we've seen in a long time. You see right here on the chart, every little helps, as Tesco's would say. But this is a similar situation to the food thing we just discussed. Wholesale prices for oil fell a long time ago, and prices for UK consumers have remained high. It's about time they caught up. And the problem with falling food and fuel data is it flatters the overall inflation figures. As food price growth drops from the insane rates it is at currently, it will make the overall CPI figure look better. The media will then be able to go, oh look, the average rate of inflation has fallen by another 1%. Turned a corner, yay. What we really need to look at is the other components of inflation. I mean, we've been banging on about these now for what feels like 2 years. So-called core inflation. We need to look at this to see how persistent and sticky the issue is. And I'm sad to say that core inflation has not budged in any meaningful way. Core CPIH is down by 0.1%, and core CPI is down by 0.2%, showing how persistent these core components continue to be. At that rate of decline, the UK is in real trouble. We need to see sharper declines here. I make the distinction between CPI and CPIH as I want to explore that data a little bit more. CPI is a measure of inflation. The Consumer Price Index is basically a common basket of goods people buy. CPIH is the CPI data, but also including owner-occupier housing costs. The H is for housing, so the cost of owning a home. You'll see these costs referred to as OOH, or owner-occupier housing costs, and that's this line here on the chart. Notice how it's increasing. Basically, the cost of owning a home is increasing. And when you look at the components of the OOH data, you see that the key one is mortgage interest rate payments. That's going to come as no surprise to anyone, but worryingly, this data is saying that the cost of owning a home has only risen by around 5% over 12 months. I think most of you at home will be acutely aware that the cost of a mortgage is going up by a lot more than 5%. The problem is there's still a long way for this line to go in terms of reflecting the pain many mortgage holders will be feeling in the next 12 to 18 months when it comes to refinancing their properties. And that's why I have an issue with this narrative of, oh, we've turned a corner. We're celebrating a 1% reduction in the price of cucumbers whilst ignoring the cost of keeping a roof over your head. And while I said that food cost inflation at near 20% is a national emergency, and it is long term, a 5% increase in the cost of keeping your home, which let's face it is way lower than the reality that most of us are facing, is far more damaging to household finances. I think any suggestion that there is now relief for people is tone deaf. Services, education, recreation and culture, communication, clothing and footwear have all not budged or increased in price in the last month, again pointing to how persistent core inflation is. I don't want to be a doom and gloom merchant making you feel crap about all this stuff on your way home from work. I'm sorry about all of this. All I'm saying is a 1% drop in inflation is not something to celebrate, and I'll be excited when I see the core components move meaningfully lower. Then I think you can say, we've turned a corner, you know? And I'll be sat here then, in a party hat, with an Andrew Bailey t-shirt on. I'm going to need to buy an Andrew Bailey t-shirt now. Having a great time with you all. But for now, the Bailey t-shirt is staying in the box. Because the Bank of England have cranked up interest rates, increasing pain on households. And the only meaningful change that we've seen in inflation is food and energy. Two things that are not impacted by interest rates at all. The next rate decision is on the 3rd of August. I think there is a 50-50 chance of us getting either a 0.25% or 25 basis point increase, or them just taking a pause and doing nothing. And then the next inflation data is on the 16th of August. Put it in your calendar. I'll be here going through the numbers and hoping to whip out the Andrew Bailey t-shirt. Thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you soon.